Okay, people. So thanks to Sophie Tumasi and Sonia Fadey, I was able to look at the new documentary, Black People Don't Get Depressed. Yo, this was really interesting. It's a real interesting piece. It is from Sara Chitambo, and it's her feature directorial debut. She also wrote the piece. It is now the information for this is it's not the best. All right, so I'm having to get it off of the actual film credit screen. So let's see what we can do here. The film is produced by Katharina Wenick, Dumi Gumbai, and Sara Chitambo. Actually, it is Sara Chitambo-Hatira. Right, so yes, she directs, writes, and also is one of the producers. Tazeliso Monahing was on cinematography. Nomfondo Lucia Masango edits the piece. And okay, let's get to who is in the documentary. Because there's a load of different people talking and, just contributing to it, which is, I say, just intriguing, right? So, all right, here we go. So the doc features Baba Buntu, Doris Chanda, Agnes Chitambo, Tisa Chitambo, Ian Kamua, Ebenezer Dibakawan, Relibone Rahanzu Africa, Gogo Kaela, Mama Tibogo, Apish Tiisha, Helena O'Neill, and the late Dr. Cindy Van Zyl. Unfortunately, she died during the pandemic. All right, so that's who's in it. Now, the documentary is about. Where is that information? Okay, so it is. We follow Sarah, right, as she's journeying into mental health in Africa with a particular focus on depression and the perceptions of depression on the African continent. Her approach to making this film sparks a parallel with the image of someone meandering through a dark hallway with a beam of light at the end that seems to promise a sense of healing. As the narration goes, and so I continue to do the work, reparenting my inner child, putting the pieces of my broken and neglected self back together. It's, so, we have people, just being very forthright and open on their situations. Right, the struggles that they have faced and what it took for them to find their way out, right? Because I think a lot of people, they mentioned that, yeah, they realized they were depressed, right? They went to the doctors and everything, and so they started putting in the work. But then the pandemic hit, everything shut, and now what do, right? I think Ian Kawame is interesting in the fact that, yeah, so he was talking and about what he was going through, and he went to the doctors, and he asked the doctor about antidepressants, but the doctor, after a lot of talking and some tests and stuff, was just like, I think exercise could help, right? And he went back 3 months later. He didn't really think much had changed, but they redid the tests and he was in a better situation, right? So he didn't realize it, because I think when you're in the thick of things, it's hard to know, right? So then he just continued exercising and it really did help. But then the pandemic hit and he wasn't able to go to the gym. He wasn't able to work out, do the exercise. And, that was an issue, right? That was a big issue. So, I mean, that story, right, that experience really was something that a lot of people were affected by, I think, there's always a stigma around mental health, looking weak, looking like you're not in control. And especially when, there's all these other oppressions. So you're not trying to show a weakness, right? So people can, the perception that they could use that against you. So, yeah, I mean, that's interesting, right? And we had people using different forms of activities to help navigate it, right? There's a comedian, Ebenezer, and he was using his comedy to help, though he does, and it is a thing, right? There's a lot of people, say, comedy is like therapy, and it's not really, right? It's good to be able to get things off your chest. But if you have no one else to talk to, that's an issue. Because, as Ebenezer says, right, you get up, you do your piece, and then you're done, right? So you were on stage for however long that time period is. But then now, like, you finished, you're probably back home, and you're just in your own thoughts again. You know what I mean? So it's not really therapy. I think Sarah said something really interesting. I think it was Sarah that said it. Like, the taller you get, the smaller the world is. And I think that is a really, poignant thing, because I think when you gain more knowledge and stuff, you think that, where do I go with this? Right? And it's hard sometimes to find, the help that's needed, right? Find that guidance, find that lighthouse in the dark. So it was just all of these different things. Like, Sarah set up a group, like a meditation group. I think Ian was doing a piece, a multimedia piece of work, like, examining trauma and all of that kind of stuff. So, Ebenezer was, as I said, he was using comedy, like, just, there's a lot of different coping mechanisms on display. We also hear from, as I say, the late Dr. Cindy Van Zyl. And she was again very open about her mental health struggles, right? And the things that she used to help her, and how she was using her platform to relay like really important information to people, right? How you can seek help, right? Trying to demystify the stigma around it. Just all of those things. So I think this documentary does a really nice job of opening things up, right? Being transparent on these people's lives and what's affecting them, how they, try to mitigate the situation, right? What kind of prevention they put in place. Some people use medication, as I said, some people use exercise. There's not a one fits all solution, and even if you're using one form, that doesn't mean another form might not help later on, right? So I think it's one of those things where a conversation is needed, and this documentary, I think it does a good job of opening things up, right? So people can possibly have that talk. Now, filming wise, it does have subtitles. The subtitles are terrible, right? They're yellow, and yellow is not a bad color, but there's no solid background behind, so you're just losing the subtitles in whatever they're on top of. So subtitles weren't great. Some of the camera angles, and framings for scenes and stuff were a little odd. They didn't always work. And like the credits looked very, early Microsoft, right? So that kind of element of the documentary is very rudimentary. But it doesn't really matter, to be honest with you people. It doesn't really matter, because the important thing is the message, right? And this exploration. Now, they do explore the notion of ancestral trauma, which I don't know how I feel about, right? Because I do believe that we do have things in our DNA that makes us do certain things, that exacerbate certain fears, right? Like fear of the dark, fear of spiders. When you walk, say, through a forest and people are looking up, right? I think that all is, a feedback from our past, right? As cavemen and just all of that kind of stuff. So I do think that things that happen to us can have a ripple effect, but I don't always know, right? Like, if necessarily, certain thing, you can always just put things onto, oh, that's because of that, right? That's because of that. Now, it's because of the situation we are in at this moment in time, right? Obviously, there's these other things that have, I think, an effect on our circumstances, right? Like, this racism is still a thing. You know what I mean? A lot of people want to be like, it's dead. It doesn't exist anymore. You're an idiot, because it does. So I think that can definitely have an effect on you and where you live, right? Some places are worse than others, right? And sometimes it's so undercover, right? So your ability to find work or housing and just all of these things could be affected buy it, but it's kind of done in a way so you're just kind of like, am I crazy? Or is this happening? Is this like, what is all of this? So I think those things can definitely play a part on our psyche, right? On the way we feel, the way we inhabit the world. But yeah, I don't know, right? It's a complex thing. It's definitely a complex thing. It's not necessarily resolved in this, but it is brought up. So I thought I would mention it. You know, we look at the other things people do, right? Like Sarah, she designs clothes as well. So, you know, we see some of this in montages and things. And also like she was using she tried water therapy. Right, there's a charity in South Africa. I think it's Waves to Wellness, something like that. But we just see these different types of, you know, help. These different sorts of, oh man, I forget the word we used to call it. But, you know, like things that we do to try and help, right? Help situations, help us cope, like a coping mechanisms. We see a lot of different ones like that. So I think it's an interesting documentary, especially for your feature directorial debut. You know, the production side of it, you know, you can give a pass with that. But I just think it's that openness, right? To look at things like, you know, Sarah goes back to the village where she was born, right? With her mother and her grandmother. And that opens up wounds, right? And we see all of that, right? We see things going on with Ian, with Ebenezer, with Dr. Cindy, right? With just all of these people are just, you know, very courageous with putting themselves out there like that. So it's it's definitely a documentary worth checking out. It is playing at the Rich Mix in London at 4 p.m. right on Sunday the 3rd of November. So if you're in the vicinity, definitely go check it out. Otherwise, follow Sarah's Instagram, and I'm sure there will be information there on future screenings and distribution of the piece. So Black people. Hold on for a second. Black people don't get depressed. Yes, that's the one. Go check it out.